So, so Mambesh, a quick recall on what we are discussing last time. We are talking about how we can set the objectives of your research. And I've already shared you how we can set what are the main five components that comes in your objectives, such as evaluate, analysis, explore, then you recommend and you solve. So I explained all these things to you. Now I'm going to summon up this the last session of the setting objectives. So kindly watch my screen and let's see on it. So what we have done last time, we have discussed how to set objectives of your research. And we have seen that when you set the objectives, we have to make sure that, see, we have a title with you, or when you frame up the title, you can set the objective. So it is vice versa. There is no problem. But according to me, when you set the title, and after that, it is good to work on it. So you take your research title. Once you take your research title, and you know what you see in red, that is the five dimensions on which you're going to set your objectives. So behind, you are going to set the objectives based on the five dimensions of explore, analyze, solve, recommend, and evaluate. So this is the way in which you are going to set your hypothesis, set your objectives of your research. So what I'm going to see, normally people have some challenges how to identify the objectives based on the title. This is a big challenge normally everyone faces. See, don't worry, because you know when you start your research, it's a continuous learning process, because your PhD journey never ends up. So it is a continuous learning process. So once you have the title with you, what you can do, you look on the action verbs. That is one method of the title. You can see the action verb. The other one, identify the purpose. In my previous session, I already told you that with your title, you are going to identify the purpose. So the another method is look on the action verbs, because in my previous session, I have already told you that if the verbs like evaluating, analyzing, resolving, so these verbs you can use. Like if the action verbs like uncover, investigate, discover, all this leads to exploration. And if the action verbs like examine, compare, breakdown, now make sure these are not the actual, there is no strict rule that you have to use these words, but I'm telling you, if your title is having something synonymous to this one, so you can, when you set your objectives, you can put them in the category of analyzing. Then if it is the primary objective is evaluate, you can see assess, measure, appraise. And if it is some for a solution, then you decide, you develop, you address, solve, all these things will come in that one. And the last one, if you're recommending, you suggest, you propose, and you advise. So what I'm saying you, if you look at the title of your research, the action verbs on your title can help you to place in which category your research is coming. Now, don't make this as a rule of the thumb, because when you do your research, as you investigate more and more, before setting your title, you have to go many times follow-ups, feedbacks with experts, self-study to make sure that you are doing the right thing. So the purpose of any research is to generate a new knowledge. So if you cannot generate a new knowledge or bridge the gap between the respective knowledges, it cannot be called as a research. Don't do a research just for the purpose of doing a research. This is where researchers fails, and you have to recognize it's not the matter how much you do, but it matters how good you establish yourself in the new knowledge area, what you are going to put through your research. This is more important. So, in our micro research, we are trying to learn how to do practical research through entering into micro research engagements. But you have to make sure even the micro research, what you do, should add a single drop of knowledge, at least a single drop of new knowledge. New knowledge. People might have traveled in the same path on the journey, but you have to make sure that the same path followed by many people, but you as a researcher, you are going to follow the path with a particular dimension in you. So that makes your purpose of the journey. So what if you are exploring, you can seeking to understand something. This already I have explained to you in my previous session. Because if you are uncovering, if you want to know better, That is more thing that comes to explore. Analyzing because you are understanding something happening now. You want to find the relationship between the patterns. So it comes in analysis, evaluate. You are going to judge which is effective, which is more effective, which is less effective. So based on that, you can take an appropriate decision, or your stakeholder can take an appropriate decision. When you come to the method of solving, there is a specific problem, and the problem need to be addressed, and the problem need to be resolved. So there is a gap. There is a gap. So you have to fill up that gap. The last one, if you are making a recommendations, you are studying about the existing things, and you recommend which is good to good and how you can make a new thing, isn't it? So this is how you are going to identify the objectives based on title. Now, it will be foolishness if I say you make a title, then you set your objectives. No. What you have to do, the purpose on which you are going to do your research, that helps you to emulate the objectives. But this is a cycle, because the title, the objectives, the purpose, these all things should match each other. You have a purpose that doesn't match with the title, and it doesn't know where it comes with the objective, that is misleading. Because what you're going to put to the academia or to the people, your audience, is based first on the title. So when you read your title and when you go for your purpose, aims, objective, that should have concurrence. It should have, it should have a kind of relationship, and people should feel that, okay, this researcher has done the things properly. So that is why I'm using this session. You have to focus your objectives, your purpose, and the title. These all things should come in same line. They cannot be in different way. So now, if you look at this, I'm going to give you a title. From this, we are going to try to see what all kinds are involved in this study. This is my own study itself. So I can say with bit more experience, this is the study on HRD practices to minimize the labor turnover in the hotel industry. I changed it. Now I'm just changing it to a special focus on Kampala district of Uganda. Now, if you look at the main things, if you take a PhD research or any research, it cannot stop in one process like, okay, I'm doing only value, but you have the full freedom. You can do evaluation. You can do analysis. You can do exploration. So you can see when you do a PhD research, it is a mix and match of all these 5 dimensions. Now, you as a researcher, you have to decide how much percentage of exploration has to be there, how much percent analysis has to be there. What I'm saying, not the study analysis, but what I'm going to analyze, how much percent I'm going to develop. So if you take 100% as your research, so your research may have some kind of exploration, some kind of analysis, some kind of problem solution, or it can be a combination of everything. So if you look at this one, this title itself, if you look at this title, the type of the study, I can say this type of the study, I am going to assess the type of the study using key elements, primary purpose, and methodological implications. Now, the key elements, what are the key elements of this study? HRD practices will come in that one, isn't it? Labor turnover is another thing. Minimum labor turnover is another thing. And it is specified to hotel industry. And it is specified to a specific district in Uganda. That's like Kampala. Now, if you look at the methodological implications, so based on these 3 things, the 3 elements, we are going to analyze this research title. Let's see. If I'm taking the key element, the first one, the HRD practice is a key element, because this study is based on how HRD practices can be suitably used as a strategy in order to minimize labor turnover. So that, HRD practices are commonly used, but at different age levels, at different qualifications levels, at different levels of employment. You cannot apply the same practices what you use for the middle level staff to the senior management staff. You cannot apply the same thing of a 50 years age old person and a 25 years age person who are working the same level of the hierarchy. So, here it makes the sense. So that is why I'm focusing more on HRD practice and how it can be used in a peculiar way or a specified way as directed by the researcher. The next one is labor turnover, and specifically minimize labor turnover. So that is another key element. The other one is, okay, this study is going to happen only to the hotel industry. So that is why hotel industry. And I have, or the researcher has a specific focus that is on the Kampala district of Uganda. So, these are the key elements. How I extracted these key elements? I extracted the key elements from the title. So, when my audience read this paper, the researcher, when he tried to put this paper, it should have reflections on his objectives and it should maintain the purpose of his research. Here, the researcher has a purpose to minimize the labor turnover in the hotel industry. So this is how we are going to see how we are going to set the objectives of a study. Now, if you look at the primary objective of the study, it is actually a problem-solving nature, but it has some kind of evaluation. Then only the problem-solving comes here. Then what happens? The researcher itself evaluates. So, it's a problem solving. It has a kind of evaluation. What is the current HRD practice applied and how labor turnover can be reduced. Now, the purpose of the researcher is to reduce the labor turnover. So what he recommends, he is going to give a problem solution. So, when you take the 5 elements of the objectives, 5 dimensions of the objectives, we can see it. So this is the primary purpose. Now, if you look at the methodological implication, now how the researcher is going to do this? The research is going to study the existing HRD practices and identify strength and weakness and gaps in that one. Then he is also going to study how the current practices impact labor turnover. Does it have some implications? And the third side, he is going to formulate his recommendation or strategies. He is not going to create a new HRD strategy. Not a new HRD practice, but instead he's going to create an HRD practice strategy, application strategies at what level, how these things can be involved to minimize labor turnover. So if I take a quick recap, you have to reconfine yourself. There is a big relation between the purpose of the study, your study title, and your objectives. So this is very important. So I'm trying to help you to how to align when you have a research title, when you have a purpose. So from the title, you can find your purpose, and from the purpose and title, you can set your objectives. It is vice versa also. So there is no clear and cut rule like that. But one thing I want to tell you, the purpose of the study should be reflected exactly on your title. And the title should reflect the objectives of study or vice versa. So this is what I was telling you. So, in our activities, I've discussed about a number of sample researches, and you have your research titles in front of you. So what you have to do, first you take your research title and make sure how much element of exploration is there, how much amount of evaluation is there, how much amount of analysis is there, or are you going to develop something, or are you going to recommend something? So this is how we are going to work on this one. So I want to tell you, as a quick recap of both sessions, the research title should reflect, or the objective should reflect the research title and the purpose of the study. So what problem you are going to address, that should be reflected. What solution you are going to resolve, that should be reflected on your title, and the objective should reflect that one. So this kind of harmony makes a proper research. If there is no harmony between the purpose of the research, the title of the research, and the objectives, that's a big failure from the part of the researcher. So make sure, go through these slides, go through these videos, make notes, put your title, and you take what amount of these 5 elements is there in your research. So in your micro research. So to cut short, if any questions you have, you can put in the comment box. And I also wish you to tell that ISBAT, we are doing PhD programs. We have PhD programs by research in the field of information and communication technology, business and management studies. So what I suggest to you, if any of your friends or if any of batchmates or anyone known to, they wish to do a PhD, we have a facility to do the PhD. So what you have to do, share with them the details. And we are here to empower the lives. So